When is a dialogue a debate? And recently there's been a number of talks, conversations that people have had that others have framed as a debate. Jordan Peterson versus Matt Slick, they debate on theology. No, they didn't debate theology. Yes, they had disagreements, but to call it a debate? No, not really. But also kinda yes, because all dialogue can be seen as debate. I'll show you what I mean. This is a chart of different types of dialogue. The initial situation is what creates the dialogue in the first place, and then you have participants' goal, and then you have a goal of the entire dialogue as a whole. Persuasion is the dialogue that formal debates are held within, typically speaking. Of course, you can have other types of dialogue become formal debate as well, but usually you'll see persuasion being used as the type of dialogue when you are watching, hearing a formal debate take place. Many people have suggested that persuasion dialogue, or they'll just shorten it and say debate, is pointless. It's useless because you can't persuade the other person. You can never convince a creationist that they're wrong about creationism and that evolution is true, and thus the whole point is useless, and it's all a waste of time. Well, if you're focusing that the goal of the dialogue, which is to resolve or clarify an issue, is not fulfilled by the dialogue, and then saying because of that it was a waste of time. Well, but that's a conclusion you can only reach once the dialogue has taken place. And you might say, well, but come on, let's say Ken Ham, he's had however many millions of debates with however many bazillions of people, and he hasn't changed his mind. Do you really think that this is going to change his mind this time? I don't know. I don't know if it will or won't. And I won't know unless I try. Well, but don't you believe that it would fail? Well, you don't go in something believing that you'll fail. I think that that's a bad strategy. I don't have a belief about it. But he won't change his mind. You don't know that. Well, I can pretty much guarantee I would bet on it. Well, that's true. We could bet on it. And it's highly improbable that he would change his mind. But it's not outside of the realm of possibilities because humans surprise us all the time. And also, you can clarify the issues that you're having, and they might agree with that clarification even if they don't agree with your conclusion. And that has happened in debates, even against the most stubborn of people like Ken Ham or whoever you might be thinking of. Now, it's my own brain that I'm fighting with when I have to remind myself that debate does not just equal persuasion, even though that's the thing that I think of first when I hear the word debate, because in reality, all of these types of dialogue are debate. However, there is a difference in the type of debate, whether it's informal or formal. Formalized debate is when you have each side have a certain amount of time to present their argument. You might have some sort of scoring mechanism in place. You might have some panel of judges to decide who the winner is, or other things that are part of the pre-set up process where both people come in with agreed upon terms that they have to adhere to. And if they don't adhere to those terms, they can be called out on it, and perhaps that would lead to them losing the debate in a formalized sense, even if they don't admit that they actually lost the debate. Unlike formal debate, informal debate doesn't really have any rules to it. There's no scoring mechanism involved, and either side has, well, whatever time that they have. In fact, there is no time. They can talk over each other, and sometimes they do. They can interrupt each other, be rude to each other, be civil, whatever it is, because there's no agreed upon rules for that debate to take place. There are positives and negatives to both formal and informal debates. When the word argument is said, it typically applies to this type of dialogue. Erastic. Whose turn is it to take out the trash or do the dishes? Whose responsibility is that? Oh, I have to do it all myself. Oh, you never do anything. Ah, you're good for nothing. Well, your mom this. Oh, yeah, well, your dad that. Oh, well, whatever. Remember that time that you said the thing and you didn't do that and whatever. All that stuff. And, oh, yeah, well, your face is made out of poo and, yeah, well, you stink and screw your high horse and also the horse that rode in on. And, by the way, here's some more insults that I'm going to throw at you. Unfortunately, this is, in fact, erratic because the goal is rarely, if ever, reached. Because the way that you do it doesn't make any sense. Because, well, it's erratic. It's not rational. Insulting somebody doesn't get to the deeper root of the problem that is occurring. Well, but I just really hate that person. Okay, why? There's some reason you hate that person. Because they did this thing. Okay, well, why is them doing that thing bother you to the point that then you hate that person? Did it affect you in some way, shape, or form? If not, then why is it upsetting to you? And getting to the deeper root of the problem is something that's very difficult to do. So, if you find yourself engaging in this type of dialogue, know that you'll never get to the goal of it, more than likely, and maybe you should just stop doing it. Of course, not arguing with each other is something that, although we would love to not do, we're going to do it because we're humans and we have emotions, and insulting each other is easy. Bringing forth the problem to the surface is difficult. More so with somebody that you don't want to get along with. But why don't you want to get along with it? Because blah, blah, and blah. They did this, they did that, they said this, they said that. But why is that bothering you? Why? Did that affect you personally? Did it hurt your life in some way, shape, or form? Or is it that they just attacked some value that you have? That their action was against some ethic that you hold? That's a problem on you more than it is a problem on them. If their action or words did do something that affects you, harms you in some way, then it makes sense that you would be upset about them. But that's all beneath the surface. And it's something that you have to figure out what it is that's making you so mad at that person in the first place. And all of that takes a lot of mental energy and work. And laziness often prevails. So maybe you would like some examples of types of dialogue so that you can see them in action. The Matt Dillahunty and Jordan B. Peterson conversation. What type of dialogue is this? Well, it actually changes throughout because they are engaged in informal debate. And in informal debate, changing the type of dialogue is allowed, whereas in formal debate, doing that is a formal fallacy. Or can be seen that way at any rate. Depends on the judging panel if you have one, etc. So they were in persuasionary at times, and sometimes they were in inquiry, and sometimes they were in discovery. I don't think they hit negotiation too much, but yeah, there might be some hints of that, and information seeking was there. Deliberation was there somewhere, and maybe even heuristic did sneak its way in, as I hinted with my video, where I memified the silliness that I perceived to be happening due to cognitive dissonance that I perceive to be occurring. But you could say, well, I didn't see it that way, and fair enough, because we walk away from dialogues with different ideas, which is why dialogues are so important to have, whether they're formal or informal, because they don't just persuade the other person necessarily, but they persuade us individually. The audience is always affected. So, when is a dialogue a debate? Always. All types of dialogue are debate. It just depends on what type of debate. Is it formal or informal? And both have pros and cons to them. And it's up to us to decide when and where to engage in what type of dialogue and whether it should be formal or informal. So that's all I have for you this time. Please engage me in dialogue in the comments below, and I'll engage you back. Not engage as in get married, unless you're single, because I'm single and I've been looking for somebody. So I mean, if you're interested.